Winter is hard. It's long, it's cold, it's dark, the days are short, it's snowy, it's icy, especially if you're where I am in Minnesota. If you are north, winter can be a struggle. You know, if you have animals, you're shoveling snow to get to them, you're chipping ice, obviously you're not growing anything, everything's under snow and ice, and you're wondering, okay, when is it gonna melt? When is spring gonna get here? And sometimes you feel like you have to wait a really long time. The winter for homesteaders can be a struggle. So today we're talking about that thing that people don't talk about, mental health on the homestead in the winter. When we get to winter, we talk about a lot of different things. We talk about how to take care of our animals in the winter. We talk about different things to do with our barn for the winter. We talk about how to shut things up for the winter, how to take care of things, prepare for the winter, but we don't usually talk about what that means for the actual homesteader. Now, regarding mental health, obviously I'm not saying that homesteaders are the only people that deal with this. I'm not saying that winter is the only time that people deal with this, but I do think that there are a couple challenges that if you are a homesteader, there are some things that you may deal with in the winter, and I think it's a little different than what we normally think of as this is why you're struggling in the winter. When you tell someone that you are struggling in the winter, that you're having a hard time, that you're in a really dark place and it's winter, they will often say, oh, you just need sun. That's what you need. You need some sun. You need some vitamin D, you need a sun lamp, you need to wait for a sunny day. And I get it, because seasonal affective disorder is a thing. And as a homesteader, it's really hard to deal with not having sun, not being able to be outside, not having your hands in the dirt. It's really hard to deal with that because that is most of your life. And so to have a season that you come into that you don't have that, it's really hard. But I don't think that's all it is. And I have talked to enough homesteaders about this to know it's not just always that you need sun. There are actually other reasons that homesteaders will struggle in the winter. One of the reasons that I feel like homesteaders can really struggle in the winter is that we are so busy 3 out of 4 seasons of the year. In the spring, in the summer, in the fall, we are running around like chickens with our heads cut off. We're so busy. And then we get to winter and there's not as much to do. Depending on what kind of a homestead you have, there may be nothing to do. It's not like we're never not busy. We always have things that we can be doing, but comparatively, winter can feel like, wow, there's nothing to do. And a lot of people have said, you know, the earth is showing us what to do in the winter. The earth is showing us it's time to calm down, it's time to take a break, it's time to rest. The earth is doing that in the winter, and so that's what we should do too. You should take your signal from the earth. The problem is, for some of us, we need to keep busy. For some of us, staying busy means that we stay out of trouble. And a lot of people will use that phrase and say, you know, oh, I gotta stay busy so I stay out of trouble, meaning, you know, like, I'm not breaking the law, I'm staying out of jail. That's not what I really think that means. I think sometimes for some of us, staying busy is how we stay out of those dark corners of our minds. And it's how we don't have the time to focus on those things we shouldn't be thinking about. We don't have the time to worry about things we shouldn't be worrying about. And so winter becomes this time where some people are resting and some people are enjoying that quiet. And for some of us, it's not quiet and it's not peaceful and it's not a season we want to go through because we know all the work is done and we have time to sit with our thoughts. And for some of us, that's not a good thing. Another reason that winter on the homestead can be hard is it also gives you time to deal with stuff that you haven't dealt with, and I mean stuff that's outside of yourself. So spring, summer, fall, you may not have time to deal with family drama, parenting issues, financial issues. They may be things that you're just like pushing away, like I'll deal with them later, I'll deal with them later. And then in the winter, when things calm down on the homestead, you finally have time. And while I think it's really good to deal with things, and I absolutely think that you should deal with things, you can't not deal with things. But doing that all in the winter, when it's cold and dark and snowy and icy, can feel overwhelming. It's crazy because it's almost like sometimes the homestead is what saves you. It's full of life, it's full of green, it's full of nature, and there are miracles that happen every single day. And in the winter, you have to look a lot harder for those things. Winter can be beautiful. It can be absolutely beautiful, but sometimes you have to look a lot harder to find that. And you know, some people welcome that quiet and they welcome that peace and they welcome that break, and other people don't. And it all has to do with what you've got going on. It's not always the sun that's going to save you. Can I be completely honest with you, YouTube? This past winter was probably one of the hardest winters that I have experienced in my adult life. And I really struggled. I was in a very dark place. I happened to make a post on Facebook one day on my farm page that basically said, I'm really struggling, I'm having a hard time, I'm in a really dark place. And it was really hard for me to make that post. I tend to be the person who's always pretty happy-go-lucky and always encouraging other people and kind of being that one that's there to kind of uphold everybody else. It was hard for me to come out and admit that I was really struggling. And to be completely honest, I didn't really give voice to how hard I was struggling or where I actually was in that journey. But having said that, I did talk to a lot of people. I got a lot of messages. I got a lot of emails after I made that comment or made that post. And it started a lot of conversations with different people about struggling in the winter and why they struggle and where that stems from. And we just started some really open, honest conversations. Because of that and because of other ways that I saw people kind of react to what I said, I felt like it was really a topic that needed to be talked about more. So I thought I'd make a blog post and a podcast episode and now a YouTube video about it. Next, I'm going to give you some ideas of things that actually have helped pull me out of the hole that I was in. It's always a hard thing to approach because different things will help different people, and the really crazy thing is that someone can tell you all the right things and all the things that you need to hear, and if you're not in the right place to hear them, if you're not open to hearing them, it really isn't going to matter what they say. So I realize that right now, if you are watching this and you are really struggling, if you're in a really dark, bad place, you could be watching this going, yeah, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about, but I want you to listen to the things that I have to say and just stick them in your back pocket because you may need them someday. Here are a few things that I have done this year that have really helped to pull me out of a dark place. Number one, get out, which means leave your homestead if you can. I know that your homestead is the most amazing place. It's a place you want to be. I know it's filled with the people that you love, but you are not meant to be in the same place 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I know that right now I am probably only talking to the people who work from home or who homestead full time. That would be me. A lot of people think that it's going to be amazing to work from home, that it's going to be so great when you don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to deal with people, you don't have to do any of that stuff. And there are a lot of really great advantages to working from home, being at your homestead all the time, but there are a lot of disadvantages too. So if you find yourself kind of folding into yourself and starting to struggle with things, I would encourage you to make an effort to leave your homestead. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Go to the grocery store. I find that just making an effort to leave the homestead, maybe it's not every day, but every other day, I find it has made a huge difference. And you guys, I hate to leave my house. I love my home. I love my farm. I love being here with my family, but I have found that it really makes a difference when I leave. Having said that, in the winter, it can be tricky to leave. Getting snowed in is an actual thing. For those of you who live south who think getting snowed in is just like a phrase that people toss around and it doesn't really mean anything, it's a real thing. We've been snowed in here before and unable to leave. Take advantage of those days when you can leave, when the roads are passable, to go out and do something. Leave your farm. It will make a difference. Another suggestion, be active, move around. Now I know you're thinking, Amy, stop. Winter is the time for me to be underneath a blanket, reading or having a mug of something warm and just really enjoying the fact that I can hibernate like a bear. And yes, there is time for that. But there's a difference between relaxing and just becoming this sort of inert being. And I don't know if you remember science class, but when we talked about inertia, we talked about objects that are in motion tend to want to stay in motion and objects that are at rest tend to want to stay at rest. And so when you become that thing that's not moving at all, it just becomes this thing where you don't want to do anything at all. And that's not helpful. It feels good in the moment, but it's not good, especially knowing that when spring comes, you're going to have so much work to do on the homestead. Like, you know, you're going to have a ton of work to do on the homestead, right? So to go from 0 to 60, having not done any physical activity, it's not going to be good, and you know it's not going to be good. I actually elected to join a gym. It was something I said I was never going to do again, and this winter I decided, you know what, I need need to join a gym. I need to do this thing. I know that when I am physically active, I feel better. I get those endorphins going. I get that just like really powerful, strong feeling going, and it's really, really good for me. And so I did join a gym. I go almost every day, which also helps me to get off the homestead. But it's been really, really good for me. The activity has it's really helped. Obviously eating better food, it all helps. It's all stuff that you know, like in your gut, but it's almost things like we need to be told again. We need to be reminded, okay, these are things that we need to do that's gonna make a difference in how we feel and is gonna help us through the darkness of the winter. Another suggestion. Know what makes your brain okay. Know what makes you happy. If you're watching this, I'm guessing you're probably an adult, so you've had some time to get to know yourself. Know what makes you happy. Does being around people make you happy? Does good music make you happy? Does being in the kitchen make you happy? Reading a book, being creative, being strong, being active. What is it that makes you happy? Know those things about yourself, and then make them happen when you can. Another thing, know what makes your head not okay. Does drinking a lot of whiskey make you tend to fall into a pit of despair and become oversensitive and angry? Don't do it. Does hanging out on social media and scrolling through people's stuff, does that put you in a really bad mood? Don't do it. Does watching the news make you angry? Don't do it. It's important to know yourself. I think it's part of being a really responsible adult. Know what makes you happy, know what doesn't make you happy, and live accordingly. Another thing, if you have tangible stuff that you can deal with, that you need to deal with, whether that's financial stuff or a whole bunch of projects you need to do on the farm or family stuff that you need to go through and you need to deal with it. Sometimes things can feel like just a jumbled up mess and a giant ball that needs to be untangled. Like you think of like a big skein of yarn that just is totally messed up and you need to work through it and untangle it. Sometimes that's what you need to do. It's not fun, but sometimes when things just get really, really jumbled up in your brain, it makes winter so much harder. And if you can find somebody to work through it with you, that can be key to making winter look not quite so bleak. And the last thing, reach out. Make an effort to reach out. And here's the thing that you need to understand about reaching out. Sometimes you have to reach out more than once. Sometimes you have to reach out 2 or 3 or 4 times. The thing is that when we finally get brave enough to say, I'm struggling and I'm having a hard time, we're ready to tell the world, or we're ready to tell somebody, and we're expecting them to be like, oh, okay, let me help you. And sometimes they don't hear it the first time. And that's nothing against other people. It's just human nature. So be ready to reach out. Be ready to reach out again. And here's the other thing to understand about reaching out and asking for help. Sometimes the people who will help you most are not the people that are in your inner circle. They're not the people that are closest to you. They might not even be the people that live in the same house as you. It might be someone that's outside your circle of friends, someone who just kind of latches on to what you're saying or hears what you're saying or sees a post you made or anything like that, and they're like, I know what you're talking about, and they're ready to help you through it. So don't be afraid to reach out to various different people in various different places. The thing about reaching out is that sometimes you don't realize that you reaching out and you saying that you're dealing with some stuff is actually going to help other people. When I made the post that I made on Facebook, I had a couple people who messaged me and said, don't take this the wrong way, but you actually saying that you're going through this and admitting that you're struggling actually helps me. And I get that. Sometimes we think there are certain people in the world that have it all together and, they're always happy and they're always whatever. And sometimes just to hear that they're not sometimes, is helpful to other people. And so I get that. I don't take offense to that. It's crazy. I have a blog, I have a podcast, I have this YouTube channel, but you guys, I'm the biggest dork and I'm just totally a human being. My socks don't normally match and I have a lot of dog hair on my couch and sometimes I don't know what I'm making for supper. So I think the important thing is that, no matter how big your homestead is, no matter how, if you've got a blog, you got a podcast, you're just a homesteader, whatever, or you're, someone who's super famous or whatever, we're all just human and we're all just trying to make it through. So it's important. Hang out, talk to each other in the winter, make sure everybody's okay, because you know what? Spring is going to come and it's going to be great.